Nairobi. China's national legislature and top political advisory body continue their meetings today. Deputies to the National People's Congress are deliberating the work reports of the Supreme People's Court and the Supreme People's Procuratorate. They will also deliberate revised drafts of key laws, including the Environment Code, a law on ethnic unity and progress, and a national development planning law. The Presidium of the NPC session held its second meeting this morning for the National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference. Some sectors have conducted consultations, while others held group meetings. Now, group meetings for CPPCC National Committee members will continue this afternoon. A meeting of the Chairperson's Council of the CPPCC National Committee will also be held, followed by a meeting of the Standing Committee of the CPPCC National Committee. Now, China will step up efforts to crack down on telecom and online fraud crimes, targeting organizers and shelters of criminal gangs. Chinese courts concluded some 41,000 cases of telecom fraud last year, with 85,000 people involved, a 1.2% year-on-year increase. 16 criminals from 4 major families of criminal groups in northern Myanmar have also been sentenced to death. A chief judge of the Supreme People's Court stresses China will hit harder on cross-border telecom fraud crimes.
We will crack down on crimes committed by these groups, such as intentional homicide, intentional injury, and illegal detention. We will also target the illegal recruitment of members for cross-border telecom fraud and other criminal groups, and the acts of organizing or transporting others to illegally cross national borders. We will fully implement the requirements for strict punishment according to law in terms of conviction, sentencing, and property disposal.
Now, CPPCC members have organized a discussion on a draft law on promoting ethnic unity and progress. The CPPCC vice chairman says the CPPCC's role as a specialized consultative body should be fully leveraged to promote the implementation of the law on promoting ethnic unity and progress, advance the Chinese national community, and contribute to a strong start for the 15th five-year plan period. CPPCC members say the law will strengthen the legal foundation for advancing the building of a Chinese national community.
The draft law on promoting ethnic unity and progress makes specific provisions in areas such as infrastructure development, industrial advancement, border stability and revitalization, and social progress. It helps support ethnic regions in leveraging their own strengths and accelerating integration into the national development framework, achieving high-quality development through institutional and legal measures.
When General Secretary Xi visited Xinjiang, he said, all ethnic groups should be closely united like pomegranate seeds. The proposal of this law, in my view, is of great significance to Xinjiang's development, helping us unite as one and grow stronger together.
All right, let's get more on the two sessions this hour. Our reporter Penina Karibe joins us live from Beijing. Penina, great to have you with us. Another day of meetings there. Can you walk us through what NPC deputies are discussing today?
Well, some of that, Mahia, is what you've already touched on. They did deliberate further on the 3 draft laws that you talked about. There was the Ethnic Unity and Progress, the National Development Planning, and as well the Ecological Environment Code. We talked about that a few days ago and what those laws mean. But also what we saw today was the delegates deliberating the work reports of the Supreme People's Court and the Supreme People's Procuratorate. Now, this is quite significant because essentially these are the legal backbone to China's 15th five-year plan. We did hear from the Chief Justice yesterday while he was presenting the Supreme People's Court work report, and he talked about the corruption efforts that China has put in place. He said that China concluded 36,000 cases involving duty-related crimes such as corruption and bribery, and he said that was up 22.4%. But he also highlighted the coordinated efforts by the Chinese government to go after corrupt officials who have fled the country and gone abroad. Now, we are also hearing some key buzzwords. One of those is judicial barrier. So this essentially is talking about protecting strategic resources like rare earth. We're hearing legal terms such as livelihood protection. Now, this is a campaign by the Supreme People's Procuratorate against scams and also to protect vulnerable groups. We're also hearing terms such as high-quality development. So this is ensuring the law supports innovation and just not the traditional manufacturing. So, Mahia, all of this is the Chinese government essentially saying that it is not just concentrating on growing the economy, but it is as well building a legal protection around its tech and its people.
All right, Penina, thank you very much for speaking to us there. CGTN's Penina Karibe on the sidelines of the two sessions in Beijing. Turning to the conflict in Iran now, where Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi said on Monday that securing a ceasefire in the Middle East is the most urgent priority. He added that China appreciates the consistent calls from Gulf nations for dialogue and negotiation. Wang made the remarks in a phone conversation with Kuwaiti Foreign Minister Jarrah Jaber Al-Ahmad Al-Sabah. Wang reiterated China's long-standing position of resolving disputes through political and diplomatic means, stressing that the ongoing fighting is a war that should not have happened and serves no one's interests. The Kuwaiti foreign minister expressed his country's deep appreciation for China's position and diplomatic efforts. He affirmed Kuwait's willingness to strengthen communication and coordination with China to jointly promote the restoration of security and stability in the region. Well, Israel continues to strike Iran with explosions reported overnight in Tehran. Israel says it has struck a drone headquarters belonging to Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Iran claims it has destroyed a U.S. helicopter base in Kuwait. In an interview with CNN, foreign policy advisor to the office of the Supreme Leader, Kamal Karazi, expressed doubts about diplomacy and says Iran can continue fighting for a long time. Republic of Korea President Lee Jae-myung has expressed concerns about the reported U.S. move to redeploy weapons stationed in the country to the Middle East in its war against Iran. Speaking at a cabinet meeting, Lee said the ROK was not in a position to make demands on Washington or prevent the redeployment. The U.S. has said that to be moving the units and Patriot missiles from the ROK to boost air defenses in the Middle East amid reported munition shortages. Iranian state media is reporting large rallies across the country in support of the new supreme leader. Crowds gathered at the Englab Square in the capital Tehran to pledge allegiance to the 56-year-old son of Ali Khamenei, who was killed on the first day of the conflict. State media showed regime supporters celebrating Khamenei's appointment in Isfahan's historic Imam Square, with smoke rising nearby. The city has come under attack several times in the past week. Israel says it will kill whoever succeeds the elder Khamenei unless Iran ends its hostile policies.
Hello, I'm Seper Sadami, CGTN correspondent. Today I'm here at Englab Square, where people have started gathering this afternoon following the announcement that Mojtaba Khamenei has been chosen as Iran's new supreme leader. The 56-year-old cleric succeeds his father, Ali Khamenei, marking a significant moment in the country's political history. It's around 4 p.m. here, and more people are gradually arriving at the square, which has often been a focal point for major political gatherings in Tehran. We are speaking with people here to get a sense of how the public is reacting to Iran's new leadership.
Very excellent. Very excellent. This is one of the best decisions made since the revolution. It is a source of pride for all Muslims and Iranians.
Just as we have supported Ali Khamenei until now and obeyed him, from now on we will also carry out the orders of the new leader.
We are here to pledge allegiance to the new leader. We are very happy that Mojtaba Khamenei has been chosen.
The whole world was surprised by this choice, and it is a strong blow to the Zionists and global arrogance.
As the gathering continues here in Englab Square, reactions here reflect the importance of this moment in Iran's political landscape. People are closely watching how this leadership transition may shape the country's future.
Meanwhile, the death toll from floods in Kenya has risen to 43 countrywide. Families are counting their losses after floodwaters swept away homes, farms and vehicles. Heavy rains began on Friday and continued overnight. Here in Nairobi, the military and police supported emergency services with rescue efforts on Friday night. President William Ruto on Saturday ordered the immediate deployment of a multi-agency emergency response team, as well as the release of relief food. At least 30 people have so far been rescued. The Kenya Meteorological Department warned intense rainfall is expected to continue in most parts of the country, increasing the risk of flooding, swollen rivers and transport disruptions. The current rainy season here in Kenya and the wider region is expected to continue until May. The IGAD Climate Prediction and Application Center predicts wetter than normal conditions across much of the Greater Horn of Africa. That includes Uganda, South Sudan and parts of Ethiopia and Somalia. Several governments have already issued alerts for extreme weather conditions. And that's where we leave it on this edition of The World Today. Do stay with us. I'll be back shortly with more news from the continent in Africa Live.
Were you worried about your life at that particular time?
Not at all.
Excellency, thank you very much for your time. What is your assessment of the state of the continent today?
Africa has the potential to power itself.
Excuse me.
Madagascar's President Michael Randrianirina dismisses the country's Prime Minister and his entire cabinet. Egypt emerges as a travel hub amid US-Israeli war on Iran. And over 100 members of the African diaspora sworn in as citizens in Ghana. Hello and welcome to Africa Live here on CGTN. Wherever you're joining us, I'm Mahia, Mutua in Nairobi. Is what else is coming up. In business, oil price surge cools after Trump hints at end to the war on Iran. And coming up in sports, Kenya ready to host the third round of the World Rally Championship. Well, we continue with our coverage on the US-Israeli attacks on Iran. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa and Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva have raised concern of the escalating conflict in the region. They condemned the killing of innocent civilians and called for a peaceful resolution. Ramaphosa is in Brazil on a two-day state visit.
Our visit to Brazil takes place against the backdrop of renewed conflict in the Middle East. We reiterate our call for the peaceful resolution of disputes in line with the United Nations Charter, and we condemn the loss of life, particularly the loss of civilian life.
I expressed to President Ramaphosa my deep concern about the escalation of conflict in the Middle East, which poses a serious threat to international peace and security, with widespread humanitarian and economic impact.
Well, now the US-Israeli military offensive against Iran has forced the closure of key regional airspace, paralyzing hubs in the UAE and Qatar. African airlines heavily reliant on these transit points have had to suspend or even reroute connections, and now Egypt has emerged as a temporary hub. Yasser Hakim has more now from Cairo.
Airports in the Gulf region are critical to global aviation, linking Europe, Asia and Africa. Dubai's airport, for instance, handled a record 95.2 million international passengers in 2025. But the war has disrupted that travel, leading to Egypt filling part of the gap.
The airlines were checking where to divert to when the war broke out. They looked around and Egypt was the only feasible option in the region with enough airports that could receive small and large planes. Who are the other options? The Gulf states, Iraq and Syria in war. Sudan and Libya are unsafe and Maghreb is too far. So Egypt is the best gateway to Africa and the Middle East at the moment.
One of the main private sector airlines in Egypt says the industry has been on high alert to promptly deal with the chaotic situation.
Enhancing communications through our IOCC, our Integrated Operation Control Center. This includes strengthening communication between the operational personnel, commercial planning, and our handling partners to ensure and minimize delays as we can. Finally, we have adapted the operational restructuring, which is adjusting our crew and aircraft allocations to ensure continuity in all operating routes.
Being in a centralized location has helped Egypt play a leading role in the evacuation process.
There's a rise in the number of flights because of the evacuation efforts. We are evacuating from Muscat in Oman and Al Ain in the UAE to Egypt, Europe and Turkey. Some regular flights were cancelled in Kuwait and were replaced by evacuation flights. There is an air bridge from the Gulf countries to several airports in Egypt like Cairo, Sharm el-Sheikh and Hurghada.
Egypt's airports have a total capacity of about 70 million passengers annually, and they're on track to expand the capacity to 100 million by 2030. These developments have opened the door for Egypt to become a future regional aviation hub.
The recent developments are expected to generate several significant economic advantages for Egypt and the travel market. This includes increase in tourism revenue, directly boost inbound tourism, one of Egypt's largest foreign currency generators. Not only that, this will also put Egypt as a position as a regional hub, enhance its role as a strategic transit point between Africa, Middle East and Europe.
For now, however, all countries in the region are hoping for an immediate end to the war. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Madagascar's President Michael Randrianirina has dismissed the country's Prime Minister and the entire cabinet. That is, according to a statement issued by the presidency on Monday evening. It further said that the secretaries general of each ministry will handle routine affairs until a new prime minister is appointed and a new government is formed. No reason was given for the move, nor a date set for the appointment of the next head of government. A troika composed of the US, the UK and Norway is urging South Sudanese President Salva Kiir to revoke an evacuation order for Akobo town in Jonglei State. On Friday, the military had ordered UN peacekeepers, aid agencies and the civilian population to evacuate Akobo ahead of operations against opposition forces. Here now is CGTN's Patrick Oyet.
The South Sudan People's Defense Forces says the advance evacuation order to civilians and aid workers is to minimize damage ahead of the anticipated combat operations in Akobo. The Troika, however, says if implemented, the planned attack will lead to further displacement and increase the suffering of ordinary people. According to the UN, there are currently 245,000 people in Akobo County. Thousands of them have been displaced from other areas of Jonglei. The African Union is calling for an immediate ceasefire and inclusive dialogue in order to implement the 2018 peace agreement. The Troika supports this call and further states they remain committed to doing all they can to support efforts towards peace in South Sudan. Fighting has continued in Jonglei in the east of the country for months now between forces loyal to suspended Vice President Riek Machar and President Kiir's army. Machar's forces are demanding his release from detention. Machar is currently being tried on charges of treason, murder and crimes against humanity. From 2013 and 2018, fighting between the two sides killed 400,000 people according to the UN, and that violence was only ended with the 2018 peace deal, which hangs in the balance. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
Now, the U.S. State Department is designating the Muslim Brotherhood in Sudan as a terrorist organization. The decision, announced on Monday, takes effect in a week's time from March the 16th. U.S. officials accuse the group of undermining efforts to resolve the fighting between Sudan's army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. The conflict, which enters its fourth year in a month's time, has led to what the UN calls the world's largest displacement crisis. U.S. officials also claim the group has been getting support from Iran. And staying in Sudan, where the work of rebuilding continues in the capital Khartoum after almost 3 years of fighting. The UN says over 1.3 million people have returned to their homes, and authorities have reported progress in recent months as they work to improve living conditions there. But still, challenges do remain. CGTN's David Mbiti has more on that now.
The scars of war are still evident in many parts of the Sudanese capital, 11 months since the army wrestled back Khartoum from the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. The daunting task of rebuilding has been slowly progressing as more returnees continue streaming in.
The war has profoundly impacted Khartoum state. The indiscriminate bombing by the Rapid Support Forces, targeting industrial areas, institutions and infrastructure, has significantly contributed to pollution. During the bombing of the Al Jaili refinery, there was major air pollution.
Even state institutions that serve to protect human health and the environment were affected. Officials say the only environmental laboratory in the capital was destroyed and vandalized, and the cost of reconstruction will exceed $500,000. Before the conflict, it analyzed treated wastewater, monitored White Nile water quality and tested bottled water from local factories.
The environmental laboratory suffered complete and total destruction as a result of the building being burned, equipment being damaged, theft and other factors.
Cleanup campaigns have been underway in Khartoum, focusing on waste removal and environmental sanitation. On top of sewage, the Nile River and waterways were polluted from the dumping of decomposing bodies.
There was significant environmental pollution. The water was contaminated with sewage, which was extremely bad, but people were forced to drink it. You're forced to drink the water. The situation is much better now. The militias have left. People have returned to their normal lives and the water is safe again.
Experts say the three cities of Khartoum, Omdurman and Bari, which make up the capital area, will require an extensive environmental survey after warring parties used prohibited weapons in residential areas. The government is still working to improve safety conditions across the state.
They have identified all the destroyed vehicles in the streets and moved them to designated areas. They have also removed debris using specialized incinerators, as well as mines, hazardous materials, bodies and other refuse.
The UN Migration Agency says over 1.3 million people have made the journey back to Khartoum in the last several months. Many of them are families with children, with an estimated 55% of returnees said to be minors. David Mbidi, CGTN.
Now, a ruling by a U.S. appeals court giving President Donald Trump authority to suspend refugee admissions has sparked reactions in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Some citizens have described the ruling as unfair, while others say it falls within the U.S. government's rights. CGTN's Chris Ochamringa has more from Kinshasa.
The ruling by the U.S. Court of Appeals allows the Trump administration to indefinitely suspend refugee admissions into the U.S. The decision overturned an order by a lower court that blocked the ban. Trump ordered the suspension in 2025, citing high migration levels that were putting a strain on U.S. resources. Thousands of families in the DRC that had applied to travel to the U.S. as refugees are now stranded in the country.
I think that the decision to deny asylum to Congolese citizens is not a good one. People don't just decide to go and ask for asylum. They do so because there's a permanent danger in their country.
Every state, including the United States of America, have the right to define its own immigration policy. And the very important concern for us is to know that the reason why many Congolese are going out, it's because there is insecurity, there is development issue, and that's why we have so many Congolese out. And the most important question, the real solution for us, is to work on the peace in the eastern parts of Republic Democratic of Congo. And in building that peace, United States of America is a big partner.
According to U.S. government figures, Afghanistan, Venezuela and the DRC had the highest numbers of refugees last year. Other conflict-affected countries like Ethiopia, Syria and Myanmar also had large numbers. The refugee suspension was initially set for 90 days when the order was first announced last year, but it will now go on until the government reevaluates its vetting process for refugees. Advocacy groups in the U.S. and some African countries have criticized the ruling as harsh for people fleeing conflict and political persecution in their home countries. Chris Ochamringa, CGTN, Kinshasa.
Back to West Africa, where the Ghanaian government has awarded citizenship to over 100 members of the African diaspora. This initiative aims to strengthen Ghana's ties with the global African diaspora and deepen engagement with people of African descent. CGTN's Crystal Onkeo has more on the swearing-in ceremony held in Accra on Monday.
Dressed in traditional and formal attire, members of the African diaspora took the oath of allegiance before a circuit court judge, marking the start of their new identity as Ghanaians. In attendance were government officials, diplomats, and diaspora representatives.
And now we are Ghanaians!
The ceremony also featured the presentation of certificates of citizenship by Vice President Nana Jane Opoku Agyemang. She described the granting of citizenship as a significant declaration of identity and belonging, reinforcing historical ties despite the dispersal caused by the transatlantic slave trade.
We believe that reconnecting Africa and her diaspora heals historical wounds and unleashes new possibilities for global cooperation, cultural renewal, and economic transformation.
The new citizens now have the rights and protections guaranteed under Ghanaian law. This was a deeply emotional moment for some.
So it means so much to me. So much.
I feel elated. I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for what my family, my friends, my loved ones who will join me. I'm excited for what we will pour into Ghana and also what we will learn at the feet of Ghanaians.
Like, I grew up going out to play outside. I see that here. So that kind of drives it. I want my grandchildren to be able to go out in the neighborhood and play. I want to be able to send my grandchildren to the store and not have to worry about their safety. And I feel that I can do that here.
According to the Vice President, the government is in the process of improving a comprehensive diaspora engagement policy to foster practical partnerships in areas like investment, entrepreneurship, and education for mutual development. Crystal Onkeo, CGTN.
Now, as Chinese policymakers discuss the country's next development roadmap during the two sessions, technological innovation and industrial upgrading are high on the agenda. With the country looking to move manufacturing further up the value chain, CGTN reporter Daika Yi looks at how that shift is taking shape, starting with the newest generation of high-speed trains.
A new generation of speed in a new test for manufacturing strength. China's CR450 high-speed train is able to reach 450 kilometers per hour in test runs, further pushing the frontier of the country's railway technology. But speed is only part of the story. The train itself offers a glimpse of where China's manufacturing is heading, as political advisors at the two sessions look for new growth drivers in industry and technology. One of them is Zhao Hongwei, chief researcher at the China Academy of Railway Sciences.
Extensive work has been carried out on the CR450 project since 2025, and significant progress has been made. So far, the train has completed about 300,000 kilometers of testing, with more than half of the evaluation process already finished.
Zhao says the CR450 also reflects stronger resilience in China's industrial supply chains. The train is also built entirely with independent intellectual property rights. Key components including wheel sets and bogie steel plates are now produced at home. The project is also lifting related sectors, including machinery, metallurgy, electronics, and chemicals.
A high-speed train is a highly complex piece of engineering equipment. We estimate it contains more than 40,000 components, along with multiple control systems. These parts come from many different sectors supported by an entire industrial ecosystem. So projects like this naturally drive the development of the broader industrial chain.
Innovation, policymakers say, is where technology and industry must meet. At the ministers' corridor during the two sessions, China's industry ministers stressed the need to turn scientific breakthroughs into real industrial progress.
We will follow the principle that industry sets the questions and technology provides the answers. The new round of initiatives will upgrade key manufacturing supply chains, drive breakthroughs across the entire chain, and speed up their conversion into new quality productive forces.
Projects like the CR450 show how that process works, moving ideas off the drawing board and into production.
A high-speed train is built for speed, but innovation moves differently, bringing together and integrating thousands of technologies. The deeper shift may be how fast an industrial system can evolve around it. Dakai, CGTN, Beijing.
And it's just about time for the business. Here's what's coming up. Oil price surge cools after Trump hints at end to the war on Iran. And Lebanon's economy in turmoil after Israeli strikes on the country's south.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca. among the crowds in Cairo
who come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
Along the waters of the Nile, along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
Time for the business. Oil prices fell after hitting a more than 3-year high in the previous session as U.S. President Donald Trump predicted the war in the Middle East could end soon. Brent futures fell $6.28 or 6.3% to $92.68 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was down $6.19 or 6.5% to $88.58 a barrel. Oil surged past $100 a barrel on Monday to the highest since mid-2022 as supply cuts by Saudi Arabia and other producers during the expanding U.S.-Israeli war on Iran stoked fears of major disruptions to global supplies. Prices later retreated after Russian President Vladimir Putin held a call with Trump and shared proposals aimed at a quick settlement to the war, easing concerns about supply. Now, prices, however, remain under pressure as Trump considers easing oil sanctions on Russia and releasing emergency crude stockpiles. While rising tensions amid the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran are sending fresh shockwaves through global energy markets. For Nigeria, the implications are complex. Higher export earnings on the one hand, but rising petrol prices and inflationary pressure on the other. CGTN's Deji Bademosi has more.
The U.S.-Israel war on Iran may be happening thousands of miles away from Nigeria, but the direct impact has been felt here.
In the last 7 days, petrol prices have been adjusted upwards in Nigeria at least 3 times. Now, these adjustments are happening as global oil prices go up, and things might actually get worse in the coming days or weeks if this war continues to drag on. People in the country are now feeling the heat because the price of petrol has now gone up by at least 20%.
We're buying fuel 800 and something. Now fuel went to 960-80. Today now, as of yesterday, today now fuel is 1,000. Look at total 1,075 naira. I bought even in NNPC 1,081 naira yesterday evening. It's not proper. It's not good.
With the removal of petrol subsidy, Nigeria's domestic petrol price is now literally determined by the global price of crude. This is despite massive local refining by the privately owned Dangote refinery, which has explained that even though it buys a portion of its crude locally and in the local currency, it still pays the naira equivalent of the international price for the crude.
To shield Nigeria from, and I'll use the word foreign supply or external supply shocks, 2 things must happen. Crude oil production must increase. Once that crude oil production increases, more can go to local refineries. If more go to local refineries, then quote unquote, this shock is reduced in terms of supply sourcing.
Nigeria's inflation has been trending downward for some time now, causing the country's central bank to begin easing on interest rates. But the rising petrol price could now halt any further decline in inflation.
But when I'm looking at it from individuals, household firms, the Nigerians on the street, how does it affect them? More money will have to come out from their pockets, to meet up with their livelihood, to meet up with their daily demands. The cost of transportation will go up, cost of energy, cost of fuel, cost of food. They will need to spend more money.
Indeed, while households feel the pinch at the pump, the government stands to gain from higher export revenues. Nigeria's budget benchmark was set significantly below the current crude prices. This means that every dollar above that benchmark translates into additional revenue flowing into the Federation account.
The caveat on that is that if that money is not spent judiciously, then it could be filtered away. The second thing is that once prices of petroleum products are going to shift, they are shifted based on a few things. Crude oil price, exchange rate. So if if this war continues and crude oil prices continue to go up, One federation account makes more money. It means that the three tiers of government also get more money too. Economy-wise, it now means that there's some positives in terms of foreign exchange because we're gaining so much more.
With a huge budget deficit and debts, additional revenue from crude would certainly make a lot of difference for government finances. But Nigeria's crude production currently hovers around 1.7 million barrels per day, below its potential and below historic highs of over 2 million barrels daily. Analysts say the country may not reap adequately from the rising global crude prices if it continues to produce below its capacity. One more worry for the government will be how to balance fiscal gains from more oil revenue with the domestic hardship the rising crude prices will bring about. DG Badimasi, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
Now, Egypt has raised prices on a wide range of fuel products as the region continues to reel from rising global oil and gas prices and the disruption of Middle East output from the US-Israeli war on Iran. The Petroleum Ministry said this comes in light of the exceptional situation resulting from the geopolitical developments in the region and their direct effects on global energy markets. The decision comes days after Egyptian Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli said that the state might resort to exceptional measures if global fuel prices rise significantly because of the war. The increases of about 14% to 17% on a wide range of petroleum products are the first this year and follow a hike of nearly 10.5% to 12.9% in October. South Africa's fragile inflation outlook is under fresh threat as the escalating Middle East conflict sent oil prices soaring and the rand tumbling. Brent crude oil prices are up 30% since US-Israeli airstrikes began on February the 28th, while the rand has weakened by over 4% in the last week. Sumitra Naidu now reports.
The US-Israeli attacks on Iran will have far-reaching consequences for emerging markets. Already, higher oil prices have changed South Africa's economic trajectory.
The price rise comes through into your inflation number because we now have a new inflation target of 3% with a 1% leeway either side. We probably will breach that 1% leeway, and that would cause the Reserve Bank to possibly be forced to raise interest rates, even though that's not the right thing to do when you have a supply shock, but it might have to do it because it's establishing a new inflation target.
Brent crude has surged more than 30% year to date and is expected to reach $120 as the war intensifies.
South Africa being the net importer of oil and fuel, we know that most of our refineries have closed down. We don't have enough capacity in terms of refining. Even if we did, we still need oil to be shipped through the Strait of Hormuz, which is almost non-functional. So that is going to have a negative impact. We're going to have to import this oil at a higher price and also import fuel at the very high price.
Rising oil prices have already started to filter into the South African economy, and it's going to be a double whammy for consumers next month. That's when prices at the pumps will go up and a new fuel levy is set to take effect.
Fuel prices affect every individual. For those commuting with public transport and personal transport, having to fork out an extra cent is quite steep based on the cost of inflation that we are encountering in the country.
I believe it's going to affect a lot of people, as we know that we are facing actually unemployment. So I believe that we are going to be devastated. But what can we do? But really, it's going to devastate us.
Higher fuel prices feed directly into transport, food and logistic costs, particularly through diesel, placing renewed pressure on households already struggling with elevated living costs.
We're already dealing with higher administered prices in terms of the cost of electricity because NERSA needs to make an adjustment for some errors that they made a couple of years ago, and the consumer is just going to pay. You've got high food prices already because of the foot and mouth disease. So there's a number of factors that are certainly working against the consumer.
For businesses, especially in agriculture, mining and freight, a diesel spike could erode margins and delay investment decisions.
We are not that far above zero. We have 1.5, like that kind of to 2% kind of like growth targets for the next year. I think $10, oil price increase results in like about a $0.3 reduction in GDP growth. that already puts us into like negative economic growth. So we could be in a recession, and this won't just affect us. Like I said, this will be Europe, this will be the whole world as well.
South Africa, like the rest of the world, is hoping for an end to the hostilities as it remains heavily dependent on a steady oil supply and stable oil prices to maintain economic stability. Sumitra Naidu, CGTN, Johannesburg.
Israel has deployed more troops and tanks near the border with Lebanon as it continues to strike the south of the country. Hezbollah entered the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran in support of the Islamic Republic last week, firing rockets into Israel. Since then, Israel has carried out airstrikes and captured several posts in southern Lebanon. Over 500,000 people have been displaced. Adel Mahroui has more now on the economic impact of the conflict from southern Lebanon.
Since 2019, Lebanon has been facing numerous crises. It started with a financial crisis, failure to pay national debt, to the COVID-19 pandemic, an explosion in Beirut's port, and then a series of conflicts between Lebanese militant group Hezbollah and Israel that started in 2023. As the conflict with Israel renewed this month, some analysts expect a greater impact on the economy.
The current conflict came, and no one knows its full impact for now because we don't know how long it will last. But if it stretches for a long time, our economy can fall to figures below zero because we'll lose all activity we have recovered. This means someone who has the lira currency will not spend it because no one knows how this conflict will end.
All companies and traders prefer to trade their goods or services for cash payments on the spot. The cash economy has deepened with the crisis today, and the country is in a standstill. Foreign investors have shied away from Lebanon. I think they still stay away today because of the lack of trust. Investors fear they will lose their money. And if we face a crisis every year or year and a half, investors will prefer to invest in other countries.
In between each crisis, the country briefly gets some time to recover. The current conflict with Israel has shut down many economic operations. It fueled mass displacement, putting pressure on the government to pay the bill. And for a service-based economy like Lebanon's, that threatens an economic collapse.
Given the current circumstances, Lebanon doesn't have millions of tourists like Egypt or Turkey. Therefore, remittances is the foundation of the economy. 1 million Lebanese citizens, or 250,000 families, live on these remittances. It's why the U.S. dollar cash flow in the market here is more than any country in the world because people no longer trust banks.
The conflict could pose further risks to the lira, which has lost more than 90% of its value since 2019. As the economy weakens, a nationwide brain drain wave that has seen some 1.8 million Lebanese citizens live abroad could gain more momentum, and unemployment, which is officially at some 11%, will surge. People here have been suffering for long. Since 2023, more than 80% of the Lebanese population have been living below the poverty line. Currently, the minimum wage is $312. Some experts estimate that wages should be higher. And if the conflict that broke out with Israel this month stretches for longer, the economic impact could worsen. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Tyre, south of Lebanon.
Right, and here's what's coming up in sports. Kenya ready to host the third round of the World Rally Championship.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
Welcome to the sport. Now, the WRC Safari Rally is kicking off here in Nairobi this week. All the action will take place around Naivasha, that's 90 kilometers north of Nairobi, with a shakedown on Thursday. At the same time, the government is looking to extend its Safari Rally contract with the World Rally Championship. The 6-year contract lapses this year, but Kenya has been in advanced negotiations to secure the hosting rights. Here now is CGTN's Mohammed Abubakar with more.
The third round of the World Rally Championship will this week get underway in Kenya, the only African leg of the 14-round competition across 4 continents. The event, dubbed the world's toughest rally, has been largely dominated by Toyota Gazoo Racing Team since 2021. WRC Safari Rally Kenya defending champion Elfyn Evans is currently sitting on top of the leaderboard, having won the Rally Sweden and finishing second in the opening round in Monte Carlo.
Safari Rally is one of those events that's very, very wide open. Many things can happen during the week. You also need a little bit of luck on your side, I think, to go through Rally Kenya week with no issues. So, you can never feel too confident here, I don't think. But of course, we're here to aim as high as we can and deliver our best performance.
As the 6-year contract of the WRC Safari Rally comes to an end this year, the Kenyan government says it hopes to secure the renewal and extension of the event's hosting rights for years to come.
We are aware that this year, 2026, the first 6 years is coming to an end. But we have made deliberate effort. We did appoint a negotiation team so that we can have an engagement with the organizers. And we are happy to report that all indications is that we will get another 5 years of hosting Safari Rally.
The rally's itinerary has been changed this year, with action in the capital city Nairobi dropped entirely, moving the 20 competitive stages to Naivasha, 90 kilometers northwest of the capital.
We'll have the flag off at Service Park at the Wildlife Research and Training Institute, and then the vehicles will head to Camp Moran, which is about 40 kilometers away at just next to Sleeping Warrior, and then they'll come back to Mzabibu, which is a rally village, at the end of the day on Thursday. So we have a full rally day on Thursday.
As part of the event's heritage, local dealers are now building FIA-approved rally cars to be used by young Kenyan and regional drivers.
We are actually giving 2 rally-prepared starlets which have been locally done in Kenya to FIA standards, homologated and to be used. This will be used in the training program. We have actually got a training curriculum that we are also giving, and organized a trainer to come all the way from South Africa to actually help with the upcoming drivers.
Having battled snowy conditions in the first 2 rounds, drivers have been advised to expect difficult elements, including unpredictable weather, as they return to Africa for a battle of man and machine on the floor of the Great Rift Valley. Mohammed Abubakar, CGTN.
In athletics, Kenyan marathon legend Eliud Kipchoge has announced that the 2026 Sanlam Cape Town Marathon will be the first race in his new global initiative dubbed Eliud's Running World. The event, set for May the 24th, will mark the beginning of a unique tour where Kipchoge plans to run 7 marathons across all 7 continents over the next 2 years. The project aims to inspire people around the world to embrace healthier lifestyles while connecting communities through the power of running. The tour will additionally raise funds for the Eliud Kipchoge Foundation, supporting environmental conservation and education initiatives in underserved communities. To European football now, Liverpool coach Arne Slot confirmed that first-choice goalkeeper Alisson Becker will miss their Champions League round of 16 first leg against Galatasaray after reporting discomfort following training. Slot, who will be at the helm of his 100th match with the English side, hopes that replacement goalkeeper Georgi Marmardashvili can help Liverpool in Istanbul in an atmosphere often lauded for its intensity. Despite a disappointing domestic campaign, Slot and Liverpool can still end the season with silverware as they are in both the FA Cup and Champions League race.
And I have a lot of respect for Galatasaray, for their manager. He's been so successful here as a player. And now as a manager, won so much with this club. Recently they played Besiktas, who are having one of my former players, Orkun Kötçü, who I know is a very good player as well. But they were able even to beat Besiktas with 10 men, so that tells you a lot about how the team is fighting, if that is necessary. So they have quality players that can fight, and they have great fans behind them.
Our primary goal is, of course, to gain the upper hand in the first match. We know how good our opponent is. Despite their ups and downs this year, they have some very good players. Right now, their chances of winning the championship in the league are practically impossible. That's why their biggest goal is the Champions League.
Iraq coach Graham Arnold wants the team's FIFA World Cup playoff to be postponed amidst the travel chaos triggered by the conflict in neighboring Iran. Iraq were due to head to Mexico later this month for their clash with either Bolivia or Suriname. With the travel lockdown in the Middle East, Coach Arnold is concerned players and staff will not arrive in time for the match in Monterrey on March the 31st. He said putting together a team solely with players based outside Iraq would hinder the country's chances of qualifying for the World Cup for the first time since 1986.
Probably the biggest problem position would be the goalkeeper because they're all from Iraq, the three goalkeepers. But probably 60% of the squad is from Iraq itself and playing the local league there. And in anything, you know what it's like to qualify for a World Cup or to be successful. You need your best team available and all your players ready to go. And again, that's my biggest concern with the preparation.
In women's football, defending champions China came from a goal down to beat DPR Korea 2-1 and go top of Group B in the Women's Asian Cup on Monday. DPRK took the lead in the 32nd minute at the Western Sydney Stadium. Han Jin-hyong delivered a cross into the box and Kim Kyung-yong was on hand to finish and give her side the advantage. But China responded just 2 minutes later when Chen Kui-zhu struck a low shot from outside the area that slipped through a crowd of defenders and into the net to level the score. China then completed the turnaround in first half stoppage time. Zhang Chengshui broke past the DPR Korean defensive line and delivered a perfect cross for Wang Shuang, who fired home from close range. And with the win, China, who are seeking a record-extending 10th title, goes top of Group B with a 100% winning record. So far, they will face the runner-up of Group C in the quarterfinals. That's either Chinese Taipei or Vietnam. The DPR Korea, second in the group, will face Group A winners Australia. Third-placed Uzbekistan will also be in the quarterfinals as one of the tournament's two best third-place teams. And that's all we have for you this hour on Africa Live. Thank you very much for joining us. Do remember, if you'd like to get in touch with the program, you can always send your contacts to those on the screen and follow us on our digital media platforms. I'm Mahia Mutua. Thanks for joining us on Africa Live.